Everyone, it's match day kick-off a few hours away later this afternoon. Frankie will be there, but before we discuss today's game, Frankie, I just want to quickly go back a week ago. What was your thoughts on the defeat to Aston Villa?
That I got a lot of what I wanted to see wrong, to be honest with you. I tried to stay, maybe I had a rush of sentimental thoughts and wanted to believe that some of those players and some of those moments from yesteryears could still come good, Gio. And I was totally and utterly wrong. It was very, very frustrating day. So yeah, me and the boy was there, and I was wanting fresh West Ham. I wanted new West Ham, and I thought change needed to be a bit gradual, and it was going to take time. But I'm done with that now. We need changes fast.
So not happy with what you've seen against Aston Villa then? Is that
no? I mean, there were some good bits, but just the West Ham of old that I was wanting to not see anymore. Too much of that crept back in. So yeah, I mean, I did think that Antonio deserved that opportunity. I think he had it. You know, we give him that chance. I was really unimpressed. In fact, that beast mode Antonio that I was hoping to see, I thought he's had a rest, new season, plenty of time. You're going to be back out there now, point to prove. I'm not sure he was trying to prove any point to anyone, to be perfectly honest. Don't get me wrong. He was still very isolated like we did in previous seasons, and it's not easy for him, and he's got a tricky job there. But just some of the basics, again, just touches, just the simple parts of football that we know his technical ability is not always brilliant. It was just completely void again. And yeah, it was very frustrating. It was almost like it was just a reminder of some of those things that we'd seen in previous seasons that really didn't work, and they're still not going to work. So, yeah, frustrating old day, if I'm honest. Villa were good. I'm not knocking Villa at all. I think they were obviously a very, very good side. You commented in one of your after sort of post-match videos that they had our number, and I think they really did, to be perfectly honest. And I think anything that we tried, they had an answer for it as well. So, but the thing that really got me was Kudus just seemed to be the one who was up for it and alive, and you know, he drew that yellow card very early, and I just feel like we didn't exploit that anywhere near enough. And you said we was going to actually touch upon this, but one thing that frustrated me was just the substitutions. For me, there could have been substitutions at half time. I think some things just blatantly, obviously weren't working. And while we said we don't want to start with too many changes, we also made the comment that, well, he's got options, so he can change it quite quickly. But it didn't. And I was like, oh, well, come 55 minutes, surely Antonio's going to get hoiked and we're going to see a change there. Soucek was getting absolutely done. Time, and we sat right up the top in our season ticket seats in the end. We bought tickets down in the front row, but we ended up sitting up the top, and we was just watching Soucek just get absolutely taken apart time and time again. So you just thought he's got to change that soon. And it seemed to take forever for those changes to come along. So yeah, frustrating old day. It wasn't the sort of start that we'd have hoped, but there were still little glimmers of the fact that we can get this right this season. And yeah, hopefully the Lopetegui can make those changes quite quickly and get us back on track.
Well, we'll talk about the Palace game this afternoon in just a second. Before we do, we've got a question for you from Ralph. He says, I think we should try our new signings, but if you want to keep everyone happy, you don't change too much too soon. Is that good man management? He says he's old school and he liked Harry Redknapp.
Yeah, I mean, Harry was Harry, weren't he? At those times, he was almost the perfect fit for West Ham. We didn't have money to go and spend in transfer windows. We had to play the game a little bit, and he was the perfect wheeler and dealer that suited us at that time. And when you listen back at the stories of Harry Redknapp of previously, he just suited us at the time. He was a perfect fit for where we were and how we were as a football club. So I loved Harry, and I enjoyed those times, but I just feel like we're we've gone past that now, and that's the difference for me. We have far more options than we would ever have had in Harry Redknapp's day.
Yeah.
In Harry Redknapp's day, we would have brought in some random players that you'd never heard of in a million years, all on free transfers, had no clue what they were about. Well, we know what these new players we've signed are about, and I think that's a slight different take on it to me. We know we've got some serious talent that we've brought in the summer, and we need to see them on the pitch, because, like I say, you know, we there's some things that just never worked for us and are never ever going to work for us, and we need to see those changes. It's interesting because it ties into what I've just said. The fact that I did think the change needed to be slow, but I've almost gone full circle, and I think actually just get them in and give them time to gel. Just play them together, and eventually it will come good. In fact, I would almost rather have seen that now. If I'd have sat in through that Aston Villa game with the new players and thought, do you know what? It was just a match where they needed more time, I would almost feel better about it than having sat there and watched what I've watched for the past couple of seasons and know doesn't work.
I kind of agree with Ralph. I think there was maybe an element of man management from Lopetegui, because we've criticised David Moyes in the past for isolating too many of the squad players and only having 13 or something like that. I think Lopetegui came in and just immediately binned off Coufal, Soucek, Antonio. I think he risks isolating those players immediately, but those players are, hang on a minute, you don't even give me a chance, Gaffer. You've just hooked me. I've not even got one opportunity. Well, actually, they've had one now. I think if Lopetegui was turned around to Coufal and said, look, your performance against Villa was good enough, you're on the bench this week, I don't think he can have any complaints. Whereas if match week 1, it's like you're out and I'm putting the guy that we signed on Tuesday is coming into the team ahead of you, I think Coufal would have a right to say, hang on, this ain't fair. I deserve more than that. I think he'd have an argument there. Whereas now, I'm not sure he's got a leg to stand on after that performance against Villa. So I think short term, as in the one game against Villa, it was a bit painful, but I think long term, coming into the Crystal Palace one, Lopetegui's got all the reasons he needs now to make those changes. I think there was maybe a combination of lack of fitness, lack of pre-season, signing players, just not much time on the training ground with their new teammates. And then I think there was that element of being loyal to those West Ham players who were here last season, who Lopetegui probably wants to be part of his squad for this season post-transfer window. So I do think there would have been an element of man management. Well, now you've done that a little bit. So coming into the Crystal Palace one, let's now see your man management again in a different way, which is, I've given you the chance, you've not taken it. I'm now going to give the new signings an opportunity. And I think he's almost got, I say no excuses to make changes. He's got all the excuses he needs, which was Coufal, Antonio. Your performances weren't good enough. The new guys were patient. They only got 20 minutes because I made late subs. They're going to get the opportunity against Crystal Palace, and we'll go from there. Now, turning our attentions towards today's game, Frankie, how are you feeling ahead of it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we know it's early days, and I have got patience. I wasn't raging after the game. I was frustrated, but not really frustrated, if that makes sense. I wasn't, it was just like, okay, we've seen it. And like you said, I feel like we had to almost go through that game in the way that we did to get to where we've got to now. And like I say, I do want to see him be a bit more ruthless. You're right. He can't upset because especially when you think about it, there's going to be groups of people who are friends and everything else. And on that training ground, you've got those dynamics to deal with, and you can't cause rifts and issues this early on. And you've got to keep the squad harmony, because to be honest, let's be fair about it. While we all have differences of opinions on how the last few seasons have gone, whether they've gone really well, whether you've been frustrated or whatever it may be, the one thing that we did seem to have was a very united squad who was all playing for each other and everything else. That dynamic seemed to be right. So we don't want to lose that. And I think that's really important, that we've got people who, especially when you've got a lot of new faces, which we have, we need to keep that backbone, that core of everything still nice and steady. And like you say, let players earn their starting lineup on merit, but also keep the players who may be changed from what they used to be motivated to try and challenge to get back in the team. That's what we want to see. And I'm actually really looking forward. We got this game, but also the following Wednesday, we've got that Bournemouth game.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to a cup game more than I've looked forward to for ages.
Me too, actually.
Because we've got players who want to prove themselves.
Yeah.
And that's going to be really good to watch. I want to see Somerville go out there on that Wednesday night against Bournemouth and go, here, I want to be starting in that next Premier League game.
Yeah, I want to bench
brilliant.
Lucas Paqueta. I'm going to bench Lucas Paqueta.
Yeah, and this is why it's going to be such a taste. I'm really, really looking forward to Wednesday night. So, yeah, I mean, going back to the Palace game, while we do need to be patient, and I understand that, and I am being patient with it, we don't want to find ourselves falling behind massively on 0 points after the first, few games and stuff. So for me, while it's not a pressure game, that it's early days, we've only had one game and everything else, I just feel like we need to get something.
Yeah,
we don't want to keep falling behind.
Frankie. I completely agree, because we're City at home next. The expectancy is we'll get beat that game. You don't want to be 3 games, 3 defeats, bottom of the league. It becomes a little bit deflating to some extent. Right, changes you'd like to see then. Talk me through your starting 11 very quickly. Who would you like to see drop and who would you like to see come in?
So the Soucek thing worried me. I just, why was he so? And we know Villa did a bit of a number on him, but again, you normally still see from him enough to say, yeah, okay, they targeted you, but for me, he was just totally out of position at times. He was getting run riot. Yeah, so that says to me there might be something a little bit deeper than just a performance. It might be something that he's totally disillusioned with what's going on, and his brain might not be there because we brought in another
I think it was something tactical, personally. I think it was something tactical. He kept coming in field with McGinn and then Ramsey. Look at the second goal. He's marking Ramsey. He's marking his direct opponent. The problem is, Maatsen, the left backs, come forward and Kudus marking him, but Soucek hasn't said to Mavropanos, here, you take Ramsey, I'm going to go out and mark Maatsen. We just ignored him, or were unaware of him. So I think it might have been something tactical as well as poor player performance.
And it might have been, and that's going to be interesting because we did have under Moyes quite simple tactics, to be perfectly honest. It wasn't that much to get your brain around. Has Soucek got it in him to play that way? Maybe it is something that Lopetegui sees that needs to be done tactically, but maybe Soucek just ain't got it in him to play in that way. So I think I want to see a change on that side, to be honest. I think that's got to be done. The Mavropanos centre-back partnership with Kilman thing, look, when Todibo come on, he looked... I think he looks like a bit of one of those Rolls-Royce defenders, and I've always fancied him, as you know, and thought he's going to be, I said to you at the end of the season, I think he's going to be someone that we look back and go, wow, we've got a serious player on our hands there. So, but that's the one position that maybe it come a little bit too early. I think Mavropanos did okay. I don't think he did well. I think you've got to be quite dangerous with that. He did good, because I don't think he was good, but I think he did okay. Alongside Kilman, let them stay with that again. I'm okay with Emerson left back. But up top, I think Füllkrug, I would have him out there from the start. I think Antonio, I would say, look, you had your chance. We've got a man here who's come in who... has got something to prove as well, and that would probably be the man that I'd give a start
account
to.
Opened, please, Nicholas. I need 10 goals from you this season. Get up and running.
Get him on there,
please. What about the central midfield then? I think that's the big talking point. Tom Soucek remains a big talking point. He was under David Moyes, one game under Lopetegui, and he's the big topic once more.
I'm really the type of person who thinks that everyone should be entitled to support their club the way that they should. I would never sit here and say you should behave in any particular way as a West Ham fan. I don't like it. I don't think that should be it. Everyone's entitled to support the team the way that they want to. Personally, I didn't love when his name was read out in the first game, the boos that were there. I don't think it's necessary. It was a new game. It was the start of a new season. It was an opportunity to start fresh. to boo someone on game one. I didn't understand it.
Was there booing? I didn't know there was.
Yeah, there was booing, and not a little bit either. There was enough booing for it to be noticeable. So I didn't love it, and I think that makes it really hard for him. We already know he's come out and said that he tries his best. He gives it everything that he can. He actually loves West Ham, and normally we've had some right ropey players in the past, proper poor players, but have given everything. And have almost become like weirdly cult hero type figures. Like John Pantsil was a perfect example. Yeah. We always used to sing his name. He was never the best player, but he did try. And, so it's an unusual thing to see from West Ham fans, because normally when a player gives it his all, we accept that they might have limitations. But if you give it everything for West Ham, that's all that matters. We know his limitations. We know that some people would prefer him not to be in the starting lineup. And I think we are trying to move on from that. But again, it's early doors. We put him in there. I think we should have more been behind him and supported him in that first game to try and see if he can still be a useful player to us. He was played in a right strange way. He was played nothing like he was played in pre-season. He was so far forward in the game against Wolves and in those final pre-season games. He was almost sitting in the back four at times, and then all of a sudden we see him.
He's in Villa's back four.
And that was the thing that was that old Thomas Soucek. What we had hoped we would still potentially see from him, which was box crashing, get in there, cause trouble and make things happen. Well, he kind of did, because he won the penalty. He did have other opportunities to score. How he didn't score at the end there and get an equaliser, I don't quite know. I was jumping out my seat. I was totally in the gods down the other end of the pitch, but I thought he'd scored. It was, I don't know. That was his opportunity, I think, to show us that maybe he'd been used incorrectly for the last year or so, and actually this is now how he can start to be somebody in the squad who can actually make things happen for us again. It didn't quite come off for him. I think he a lot of people would say that he didn't perform particularly well, and they haven't, but he's still done a few bits. Look, for me, if we're going to see that issue with the fans, and there's going to be, and this, I just don't like to see it, and because of that, I would almost pull him just because of that situation. I just think we need positivity. I think we need to be going forward in the right way. And we shouldn't just listen to a small minority of the fan base who are doing that. But it just seems like everybody feels like we need to move on from that. And, if that's the case, then I would like to see a bit of a change there.
Just one word answer, who would you put in place of him?
Well, I know this is, again, something that you don't particularly want to see, which is using Paqueta in that role, because he can go wandering, he can go missing. I think people just need to see it. It almost like last season, we had those things when we would call for something for 5 or 6 weeks, and then it almost like it got through to Moyes, like he heard it. And in the end, he would play it and just go, well, look, I'm doing it. And if it doesn't work out, then he would revert back to type again. It's almost one of them things that I think we just need to see it, and how will it come off and how will it work? So I'm not opposed to it. I think it would give us a bit more attacking threat. I feel like we could have created more against Villa. I wanted to see a bit more from us. I feel like, having a midfield that can play the ball a little bit more will allow us to feed that front man a bit better. We had this opinion that Füllkrug would benefit from being at West Ham with those wide players and those good players around him. Well, Antonio had those good players around him at the weekend and didn't get a sniff, really. So, it's I think that those wide players need the midfield to move that ball quicker, not long balls from the defence. I think we've got to get the ball in the midfield better and start to play a bit more football than we saw on Saturday. And Paqueta could just give us that. So I want to see it.
I'm okay with seeing Paqueta in that role in certain games. I just don't think this is one of them. I don't think it would. I think Palace would rip us apart through the middle. Personally, I think, Ipswich at home, for example, yes, put Paqueta in there. I think the threat is reduced and the likelihood of us having more possession is increased. So I'm not against seeing it in certain situations, and I would prefer Alvarez next to him rather than Rodriguez. I just think he's a bit slow to play that sort of role, and he'd get exposed there. Right, just quickly then, we're going to predict what we think Lopetegui is going to do. What I'm going to do, Frankie, I'm going to read out player by player who I think he'll start. You can either say yay or nay, and if you say nay, who do you think is... This is now where we now guess what Lopetegui is going to do this afternoon. So Areola in goal.
Yeah.
I think he'll draft in Wan-Bissaka for this one.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
I think he will actually stick with Mavropanos and Kilman at the back.
I think he will.
And then Emerson at left back.
Yeah.
I think, despite what fans are hoping to see, I think he will actually retain Rodriguez and Thomas Soucek in midfield.
I agree.
And then I think we will continue to see Bowen, Paqueta and Kudus.
Yep.
But I do think he might bring in his new striker in Niklas Füllkrug.
We are in agreement, Gio.
And lastly, what's your score prediction for this afternoon's game?
I'm going to go with a 2-1 West Ham win.
Oh, love that. I hope you're right. I've gone 1-1. I'm sticking with 1-1, but I hope you are correct, Frankie. But there you go. That's it from us. If you head into the game later on, you'll see this man. Say hello to him. Thank you for joining us. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on and subscribe to Hammers Chat. If you're not going to the game like myself, then you can join us here on this channel at 1:55, 5 to 2. We are live with our build-up show and watch along and then review. Myself and Frankie will catch up with you next week, though. Frankie, thank you very much. Enjoy the game.
Thank you very much, mate.
And we'll catch you in a bit.